Now, the International Criminal Court has warned atrocities repeatedly committed in the Sudanese city of el-Fasher could amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The ICC says the brutality is part of a broader pattern of violence in the Darfur region since 2023. Mass killings, rape and abductions have been reported as the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces pushed the Sudanese Army out of el-Fasher last week. Aid agencies say around 200,000 people are trapped in el-Fasher in Sudan's Darfur region. They're living in desperate conditions and running out of food and water. Tens of thousands of others, mostly women and children, have fled on foot to the nearby town of Tawila, and some survivors walked for many days, covering hundreds of kilometres before reaching safety in a displacement camp in al-Dabbah in northern state. Well, Hibba Morgan joins us live from that camp in al-Dabbah. And Hibba, the UN says famine, which has already been declared in several parts of Sudan, is worsening. The crisis is deepening. Can the aid reach the people that need it the most?
Well, if you're looking at the displaced people here, the roads are open and it's safe for aid organizations to be able to come here. The question now is the issue of funding. But when you look at elsewhere, such as el-Fasher, where all of these displaced people are coming from, it's not the issue of funding, it's the issue of access themselves. Now, the report about famine came out of el-Fasher, or rather el-Fasher being one of the areas affected by famine, came before the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces took over the city. And that's because the RSF had laid siege to the city for nearly 18 months, preventing food, humanitarian aid, and any kind of medical necessities from entering the city. As a result, according to Sudan's doctors' networks, at least 3 people were dying every day, most of them children. Now, we have been in this camp for the past few days, and we've been listening to stories from the people, many of them saying that they've had to walk for days and days to make it to Tawila, which is 600 kilometers away from el-Fasher, on empty stomachs, or trying to walk for more than 1,000 kilometers to make it to al-Dabbah, relying on the kindness of people along the way to be able to get even if a single meal a day. So for them, because they were in North Darfur, because there's been no humanitarian access, because of the ongoing violence, and because of restriction by the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces on aid organizations, aid was not able to reach those who were in desperate need of it. Now, here in the camp, people still need humanitarian assistance. They still need food. They still need medication, but they're saying that those organizations, aid organizations, are yet to make their way to them here for them to be able to get these assistance that they desperately need.
And Hibba, what do we know about these tentative efforts towards a possible ceasefire? There's reportedly a proposal on the table at the moment.
Yes, indeed. Now, the United States, together with the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Egypt, formed what is known as the Quad. The 4 countries have been trying to mediate a 3-month-long ceasefire between the Sudanese Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Now, before the Rapid Support Forces took over the city of el-Fasher, these efforts were ongoing. They were trying to break the siege that the RSF had imposed on the city of el-Fasher because of the people there being in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. Now that el-Fasher is under the control of the Rapid Support Forces, the focus is trying to get other areas that are also under siege and other areas where there's active fighting going on to make sure that there is some kind of ceasefire for, also according to the plan, for humanitarian access, unhindered humanitarian access to reach those who so desperately need it. Now, according to the plan, the hope is that once there's a 3-month ceasefire in place, talks will begin between the Sudanese Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces that will pave way for a more permanent ceasefire and a more permanent agreement that would end the conflict and see Sudan return to its path and its transition to democracy. However, Sudan's government had objected to the Quad because they said the United Arab Emirates is part of the 4 countries that has been trying to mediate a ceasefire, and they've accused the United Arab Emirates of backing the Rapid Support Forces. The government, the Security and Defense Council, which is responsible for everything that is related to the conflict, is due to meet today to discuss a potential agreement to that deal, but it's not clear yet what they will decide. What we do know, however, is that Sudan is looking into this U.S. proposal that would see a 3-month-long ceasefire between the Sudanese Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces that people hope would pave the way for a longer peace and some kind of an agreement between the RSF and the Sudanese Army.
Hibba Morgan, on what is a desperate situation there in Western Sudan. Many thanks for that, Hibba Morgan. OK, let me introduce you from Tawila in Sudan, Sylvain Pennicot. He's a project coordinator with Doctors Without Borders. Good to see you, Sylvain. So, as I mentioned there, you're in Tawila, where, as we just heard, many are fleeing the massacres in el-Fasher. They've been fleeing too. Can you describe the security situation where you are, and what sort of condition are people arriving in, and with what experiences?
Good morning, Niv. In Tawila, as of now, the security situation is stable. We are 60 kilometers away at the west of el-Fasher. The area is under the control of another armed group than RSF, but the humanitarian situation here is absolutely catastrophic, since there is an estimated number of 800,000 internally displaced person here that has arrived over the past 18 months during el-Fasher siege. And now the situation that we are expecting in the coming weeks is having that already dramatic situation to deteriorate again with the coming of more civilian population to Tawila, in order to seek some safety that they are not having in Fasher and on the way from Fasher to Tawila as of now.
It's not a great distance, is it, from el-Fasher? As you said, only 60 kilometres from el-Fasher to Tawila. Are the numbers of people arriving from el-Fasher, are they huge numbers? Does that number remain constant? Are the numbers falling? What would you expect, given what we understand to be horrific situations of people fleeing el-Fasher at the moment?
As of now, the arrivals from Fasher are surprisingly low. On the very first days last week after the fall of el-Fasher, that occurred officially on the 26th of October, we had something like 2,000 to 3,000 arrivals on the very first days, but very fast. So we got prepared for a massive influx, but very fast that number decreased. And as of now, we are seeing 100 to 200 new arrivals per day, which is extremely low compared to the initial forecasts that were made by the UN and, generally speaking, the humanitarian community, that were estimating the number of arrivals from Fasher around 100 to 200,000 people in the coming weeks.
Sylvain, what does that say to you? Sylvain, sorry to interrupt. What does that say to you, that the numbers are much lower than you assumed they would be? Does that mean the journey from el-Fasher to Tawila is particularly dangerous? Does it mean that people are simply not getting out of el-Fasher? How do you interpret those numbers?
It's honestly speaking, even from Fasher, it's difficult to make sense of those numbers. There's different hypotheses. Either people are still stuck in Fasher and not able to move away from there, since we all know that there was a state, and there still is a state of famine in the city. Either the way out of Fasher is completely blocked, and we know for a fact that on some villages from between Fasher and Tawila, there are many people stuck on the way, blocked by some soldiers, or either both of the solution. We also know that there was some casualties in Fasher over the past week. So yeah, it's difficult to make sense of that very low caseload, but we have all the reason to be extremely concerned by this situation.
And talking about concern, as I mentioned, you said you were only 60 kilometres west of el-Fasher. Are you worried that humanitarian supply lines could be cut, could be affected by the RSF? And what about the security in Tawila, where you are? We know that people in that part of the world have been displaced many, many times. Is there a fear in your mind that Tawila could be at risk too?
According to current analysis, Tawila, as of now, can be considered as safe and as some kind of humanitarian space where we can work with the humanitarian community in general, but since not only Doctors Without Borders is working here, but still there are concerns, of course, because the front line is quite near from us. There are some kind of agreement between the local armed group and RSF in order to keep the city safe. But still, the city has been looted 2 years ago in 2023, and that memory is still fresh in Tawila inhabitant minds. And some of them are a bit scared about the current situation and get prepared for any scenarios that can happen in the city in the coming weeks.
Sylvain Pénicaud, all the best to you and your team there, working against incredible odds. Many thanks for joining us. Sylvain Pénicaud from Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders.
Welcome.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.